I am by your side.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to Warrior Goddess Wednesday. This is the live stream. I am your host for this evening, Rachel Z, and we are going to jump right into it because I am a little late, about 11 or 8 minutes late here. I have my clock always set a little bit of ahead just so that I try to ensure that I'm not late for certain things. But as you can see, I have a new background in terms of just to differentiate between the shows that we have going on Golden Sugar TV. If you want to stay abreast of all of those, I guess the schedules of all the live streams, let me just double check everyone that we are all good. Yes, we are all good. Okay, so let's get started because I do have a live read of I'm doing a live read of Multiversity, a very specific part of it for my TikTok live, and you can follow me at rachel.sabrina on that front. So tonight's topic, we're going to go over the goddesses of wisdom. Now, why am I going over the goddesses of wisdom of the world? This follows my series. I have some previous videos if you want to check them out. There's the goddesses of the world, considering the moon. So the moon goddesses of the world, because I found out that there's I'm half Filipino. My mom's Filipino, my dad is South African. And so I am really interested, of course, in the variations of what all of these different myths and stories have to tell us as it comes to goddess aspects specifically. And being an astrologer and someone who also studies NLP, I think of how stories impact the way that your mind maps out the reality, like your personal reality map. And there's a saying in NLP that goes, the map is not the territory, in which that as we create our own map, we have to be aware that, other people have different maps, and if we work together, we can have a more it's a more accurate, accurate is not the right word necessarily, because we're all world builders and we have our own bubble of a universe, and that bubble bounces off other bubbles. Now we have overall archetypes and overall stories, there's main themes and things. I studied English literature in university along with psychology, and I did a lot of defending things like the romance novel and certain stories that have value, and not in it's not just a frivolous thing, right? There's more wisdom in these stories than that. And true wisdom cannot be just, this is why I thought I knew everything when I was younger, right? And I think this comes from having a moon in Gemini. You kind of think oh, I already know this, I already know that, I don't need to wisdom just comes from experience. That's why we need to do a better job of honoring our elders, those who have come before us. So in my previous talks about goddesses, and every Wednesday, I call it Warrior Goddess Wednesday. I was born on a Wednesday, and Wednesday is also known as Woden's Day, and Odin and Freya are quite the power mythological couple. I'm going to do a little telling of their story coming up, but I do have some other retellings of romantic mythological stories to do before them just yet in the production schedule. So if also throwing this out there, Golden Sugar, we also do production, so I've been wrangling my way around OBS as well as working through different studios that have now made themselves available and integrating all of those things. So if this is something, if you're interested in me being your producer, I do have some, I'm going to open up some, what do you call that? I guess clients, but I would like to add more shows to the Golden Sugar suite of shows in our like online network. I guess that's the way to kind of put it. Also, if you want to support the show, you can see here on this side, yes, this side, you can get me a coffee / mushy. If you actually go to the site, you can, it comes up as a mushy. So without further ado, let's go into the not warrior goddesses, but you'll find that the goddesses of wisdom do tend to have a close relationship to the goddesses of war. Now, when I did the goddesses of beauty and love, these also ended up being goddesses of war. And the reason being, not to segue too much off the topic, that even if you think about, let's look at the Iliad, for example. Now, the whole reason why Troy was invaded, they came after Troy and they had that whole war, was because Paris stole Helen of Troy, who was already married to, I forget who the guy was, what king that was, but he stole her because they were in love. So it was for love. And before that, Paris basically judged this beauty competition between Aphrodite, Hera, and, oh my gosh, was it Athena? Yes, it was Athena. I don't know what these other goddesses were thinking. It's a beauty contest. The goddess of beauty is going to win it, and Paris should know better. And they each offered Paris something, right? Hera offered all of Europe, dominion over, like, being a king. And then Athena offered being the greatest warrior that ever lived. And I don't know if everyone knows this, but Achilles is kind of Athena's champion. And Aphrodite, of course, offered Paris the most beautiful woman in the world, and that's Helen of Troy. Quick fact, too, Helen of Troy is supposed to also be Zeus's daughter as well. So, of course, she's the most beautiful woman in the world. But this story is not about that. This story is about the goddesses of wisdom, and we're going to start with Athena. But first, let's go through like a whole list of what goddesses of wisdom exist in the world, because I think there's true intel to be had, there's true information to be had in where there's commonalities between cultures in how they tell certain stories and where certain archetypes exist. And Athena's really special too, because in my warrior goddess book, Dragon Warriors book, the warrior goddesses are in the Dragon Warriors so as well. They have this high council where they like watch over it. Okay, so this is my book. What I already wrote it. I wrote everything down with a pen and paper before I retranscribed it onto typing it. And then I got all the girls that are in it, and guys, there are knights to sign NDAs about it. So more about this is going to be coming super, super soon, all on Golden Sugar, because I am doing a short film, which is going to be basically book 2 of it, which the screenplay is basically done. But you can see, like, I wrote everything down, and then I made like little notes for myself to come back and revisit it. And this is why I was talking about my love for video games, because there's so much lore and so much that goes into the stories of a lot of these games that you don't see necessarily as you're playing, but they need to be there for the game to work. And the same can be said for like the game of life, right? There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that we don't necessarily notice, but if they're not there, then this whole thing just doesn't work. And the goddesses of wisdom are very much attuned to this. And how should I put this? There's a lot wrapped into these stories that I think hold deeper truths that the powers that aren't wouldn't want us to know. So I think that in mythology and in these stories is encoded certain things that you may need to know. And when I was a little girl learning about goddesses, and when I wrote my book when I was 14 in 1999 initially, and I have gone back, and since I'm actually meeting with a potential publisher tomorrow, to publish book one. Book one's like a young adult novel, and this is just because I'm just trying to fix this whole thing. I look like I'm looking up too much. One sec. Ah. Oh my goodness, hold on, let me just, there we go. So much better. So much better. Okay. Okay, so now, I guess that's enough of like a preamble before I actually get into the meat of this conversation. So let's get to it. I'm going to try to make this a little bigger. So this, I'm going to go through 12 goddesses of wisdom around the world just to give you guys a sense of the themes behind what makes a goddess of wisdom versus being, how should I put this? All goddesses are aspects of the great goddess, and the great goddess represents earth, and the earth is the great goddess. So when we talk about wisdom, oftentimes earth mother mythology can sometimes follow, but earth mother wisdom is a different goddess archetype, and that's something that I think I will save for another day. But that's not to say that you wouldn't have overlap between the different domains of what goddesses are, and you will see that. So here's a list from Symbol Sage. I like them a lot for stuff like this. Just a quick rundown. There are many stories behind these. I'm going to go over Athena's birth, and then we're going to go over some of the more, I guess, Gnostic tales of Sophia. And then we're going to go over Danu, and then wrap that all together into, like, what does that mean having all of these goddesses be represented in this kind of way. So let's see here. This one goes into, like, the importance of, like, the fact that goddesses are, like, thought forms. And oh, this is actually good. I'll read this out. Knowledge and wisdom are some of the most abstract concepts and among the most valued and respected traits, so naturally many cultures had various deities associated with them. So we're going to look at some of these prominent goddesses of wisdom tonight on Warrior Goddess Wednesday. Thank you for joining, and please subscribe if you like this content. I'll be here every Wednesday doing this particular live stream at least. Okay, so Athena, I like she's number one because we're going to go into more depth into her a bit later. I also like Athena. I totally forgot to bring that up when I was talking with the Dragon Warriors, but each of the Dragon Warriors in the main configuration of my book has a guide goddess or a guardian goddess who's like a main teacher who is a guide and also like a teacher who taught them in ancient Atlantis at the Dragon Warrior Training Academy. Now, Athena is my sister's guardian goddess, and it's also because she's got her tattooed on her a couple of times, and Athena's was, I won't get into her story just yet. I did talk about her mother, because that's a whole other thing. 1 second. So in ancient Greek religion, Athena was a goddess of wisdom, household crafts, and war, and the favorite child of Zeus. Among all the Olympian gods, she was the wisest, the bravest, and most powerful. Interesting. This is look at Athens. You have Athens named after Athena for very good reason. Oh yes, I guess we can get into her creation myth here. I'm going to go into more depth as to this. There's a reason why Zeus swallowed her mother. It was something about prophecy, it's also the reason why Achilles didn't end up being Zeus's son. It's because he was prophesized to usurp him. So all of this talk about usurping, he's just trying to prevent that. But according to myth, she was born fully grown out of Zeus's forehead after he had swallowed Metis. It's just interesting how this is like Métis, but Metis. This is like a tell to me somewhere. Who was pregnant with Athena, and as a virgin deity, she didn't have any children, nor was she ever married. There are several epithets attributed to her, such as Pallas, meaning girl, Parthenos, meaning virgin, and Promachos, which means war and refers to defensive, patriotic, and strategic warfare rather than attacking. And so Athena does represent the more strategic aspects of war. The idea of, if we think about RPG games, being strategic about who attacks first and in what wave, and being defensive and like making sure you have the high ground, and all of that is like Athena's domain, as opposed to Ares, which is much more of like the raw attack force of what it means to be a warrior. There is more tact involved when it comes to Athena. The goddess is so closely linked to the city of Athens, which was named after her once the people of Attica picked her to be their patroness. The temple of Parthenon, which was built in the 5th century BCE, was dedicated to her, and to this day it continues to be the most prominent temple of the Acropolis. Very cool. So that's Athena. We're going to come back to her. So we're going to go through the rest of the ladies before we come back. So Benzaiten with 8 arms. So I believe I love Japanese mythology. In Japanese mythology, Benzaiten, also called Benten, is the Buddhist goddess of wisdom, inspired by the Hindu goddess of knowledge and wisdom, Saraswati. The goddess is also associated with everything that flows and flowing energy, including music, eloquence, words, and water. She plays an important role in the Lotus Sutra, one of the older and most venerated Mahayana Buddhist texts. Much like her predecessor, Saraswati, the goddess is often depicted playing a traditional Japanese lute called a biwa. So this lute and music flow state, this whole idea of that being involved with wisdom is a good one, because it's not just wisdom is not the same thing as learning things from a textbook. It's more of like a deeper inner intel that you get from experience and other divination ways, I suppose. According to myth, Benzaiten was responsible for creating the Enoshima Island to put away a sea dragon with 5 heads who was disrupting the lives of the people of Sagami Bay. Some versions of the myth claim that she even married the dragon when he promised to change and tame his aggressive behavior. As a result, the Enoshima Island shrines were all dedicated to this deity. They are now considered a place of love, where couples go to ring a love bell or post a pink ima or a wooden prayer board with hearts on them. Oh, that's nice. I like that about, I like how dragons are looked at in Japanese and Eastern mythology as a whole. We do have the lunar year of the dragon coming in on Saturday, incoming with the new moon in Aquarius. So it's a wood dragon, and it's interesting because, like, in my book, the dragons are children of the elements, and so very primordial. And I love that in Japanese mythology, all water bodies are considered to be dragons. So if we look at the Great Lakes in Canada, those would be considered dragons. Superior. That's a big, beautiful dragon, I think. Okay, so this is Danu. We're going to come back to her as well, because I do like Celtic mythology. And there's a fun, interesting connection between like Celtic and Viking mythology and like Indian Hindu mythology. More on that in probably the mother goddess deep dive. I'll probably do that next week. Mother goddess energy. So in Celtic mythology, Danu, also known as Dana and Anu, was the goddess of wisdom, intellect, inspiration, fertility, and wind. Her name stems from the ancient Irish word Dan, meaning poetry, wisdom, knowledge, art, and skill. As the most ancient Celtic deity, Danu was considered a mother goddess of earth and Irish gods, representing the female principle, and she's commonly most associated with Tuatha de Danann Tuatha de Danann, the people or children of Danu, the group of fairy folk and divine beings skilled in magic. As the powerful goddess of wisdom, Danu had a teacher's role and passed on to her children many of her skills. That's why we're going to do a little bit more on her, because she's also a mother goddess in this case. Whereas this is a contrast to Athena, right? Who is more of like the virgin birth. So that's something to look into. And how like wisdom, there's like wisdom of being virginal, like there's in that innocence, there's still wisdom in that stage and knowing the differentiation between that and then becoming a mother. Yeah. This also goes into triple goddess territory, but that is a topic for another day. This goddess, though, Danu, is also associated with rivers, which reinforces her fertility aspect and her responsibility for the abundance and fruitfulness of the lands. So she's very similar to another Celtic goddess who I love, Brigid, and some believe that the two deities may be the same. This happens a lot, such as with Isis, my girl. Hey, girl. I work with Isis a lot, so. Okay, so in ancient Egypt, Isis is also known as Iset or Aset, and was the goddess, I don't know about this. I have to double check on this. Don't quote me on that. So her name actually translates to the throne. So, quick tip. So she's the goddess of wisdom, which I knew, yes, medicine, fertility, marriage, and magic. And in Egypt, she was often associated with Sekhmet, and in Greece, she was identified with Athena. I have to look into this. This, like, identifying with, well, the equivalencies between all of the goddesses, they blend into each other, right? No different than how, like, in astrology, where you have different planetary rulers, but there's overlap where it comes to who rules what, and yeah. And so many ancient poets called Isis the wise woman. In an essay about Isis and her husband Osiris, Plutarch described her as exceptionally wise and called her a lover of wisdom and philosophy. And in an ancient Egyptian manuscript, the Turin Papyrus, she was depicted as cunning and eloquent and more perceptive than any other deity. Isis was often associated with medicine, healing, and magic, and with the power to cure any disease and bring the dead back to life. So, I mean, this is also resurrection stuff. Her and Osiris, that is the, like, ultimate love story. So, next we have Metis. This is interesting to me because Louis Riel, I did an astrology reading for Louis Riel, who is I guess a Red River rebel hero here in Canada, and I'm from the prairies, and I actually grew up in St. Boniface, which is where Louis Riel grew up, and my birthday and his birthday are like 100 years apart. But it's interesting because the Métis have a flag, and it looks like the infinity, so the 8 on its side. And here in Greek mythology, Metis, or however you want to pronounce this, I will have to confirm, was the Titan goddess of wisdom, good counsel, prudence, planning, and craftiness. And her name can be translated as skill, craft, or wisdom. She was the daughter of Thetis and Oceanus and was Zeus's first wife. Yes, But then there was a prophecy that if she were to have a son, it would usurp Zeus, which is why he swallowed her. I think they're going to get into this. Yes, when pregnant with Athena, Zeus turned Metis into a fly. Oh, I didn't know about this. Oh, that sucks. Zeus, why? Hold on a second. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing any messages. Okay, perfect. We are good. So, let's see here. For this reason, Athena was considered a motherless goddess, and none of the ancient tales or myths mention Metis. Instead, Zeus was the one with the title Metitita, which means the wise counselor. It's like he, when he devoured her, he also like devoured her wisdom too. So, and I think it was her that warned, like was Zeus's counselor against Kronos. It was she who gave the magic potion to Zeus, which would later force Kronos, because Kronos, aka Saturn, devoured all his kids. And so, because he was also scared of usurping the throne. So it's like, oh, you truly are your father's son here, Zeus. But I guess Zeus is just a little bit more cunning and crafty and wise about doing how he handled all of those kind of prophecies. So just something, just really interesting stories. I have to go back and see, like, what does this mean? So Minerva, and this is fun because the owls in my book are, one of the owls is named Minerva, who helps us out. And Minerva was the ancient Roman deity. So Roman deities and Greek deities tend to have equivalencies. Like, for example, Venus and Aphrodite are equivalent. So Minerva is the Roman deity associated with wisdom, handcrafts, art, profession, and eventually war. She looks a lot like her depiction looks a lot like Athena. The ancient Romans equated her with the Greek goddess of wisdom and war, Athena. However, unlike Athena, Minerva was associated mostly with household crafts and weaving, and not so much with war and battle. But around the 1st century AD, the two deities became completely interchangeable, and Minerva's role as a warrior goddess became more prominent. Okay, so they just became equivalencies of each other. And Minerva was worshipped as part of the Capitoline triad, together with Juno and Jupiter. Oh, this is cool. Let's make a note of that, my starseed friends. So Juno, Jupiter, and Minerva make a triad. Capitoline, what does that mean? Let's do a quick little detour. Okay. So, like, okay, there's a significance thing here on ancient origins. So, what was the significance of the Capitoline triad to the Roman pantheon? And so, it's a trio of gods, but it's basically Zeus and two goddesses, right? So, goddess of wisdom and Juno, his wife. I believe Juno's also Hera. Let's see here. Juno, his consort, and Minerva, his daughter. And the Capitoline triad occupied an important place in the public religion of Rome, and temples dedicated to them were built in various parts of the Roman world. Yes, the Romans did not have a tradition of honoring their gods in threes. It is likely that the practice was adopted from the Etruscans. I don't know how to pronounce that. I don't know why I'm having such an issue pronouncing that. So, this is like when there was conquering in different areas, and different religions and different deities became absorbed by each other. So there's 7 hills in Rome, and the Capitoline triad was worshipped on the smallest of the 7 hills, and this hill played an important role in the early history of Rome, and it was the location of the hut of Romulus, because Romulus and Remus founded Rome. And yeah, they thought it was a sacred site even before the arrival of this triad, and another trio of gods were worshipped there. There was an archaic triad, which was a trio of male gods and was Jupiter, Mars, and Quirinus. Whatever, I don't know who that is. Like, we should look into that. Well, I'll leave that there for now so we don't go off on a huge tangent. So that is about Minerva. Next, just because I'm being conscious of time, because I need to set up for my next little comic book reading very soon. So Nisaba, also known as Nidaba and Naga, is a Sumerian goddess of wisdom, writing, communication, and the god scribes. Her name can be translated as she who teaches the divine laws or decrees. And according to the legend, the goddess invented literacy so she can communicate divine laws and other matters to mankind. And she was often associated with the Egyptian goddess of wisdom, Seshat. Ooh, yeah, I like her. I like that. That's very cool. Yeah, the Sumerians have very much equivalencies in Egyptian goddesses as well. I didn't know about this association though, so that's a new thing for me to learn right now. So her name can be translated like this: she who teaches the divine laws or decrees. So the idea that this goddess of wisdom created literacy itself so that she could communicate divine matters. In the farming regions around the ancient river Euphrates near the city of Uruk, Nisaba was also worshipped as the goddess of cereals and reeds. She was one of the most prestigious deities throughout Mesopotamia and was often depicted as a young woman holding a golden stylus or pencil and studying a starry sky inscribed on a clay tablet, like an astrologer. All right, number 8, Saraswati. Saraswati is the Hindu goddess of wisdom, creativity, intellect, and learning. She's also considered, so she's also like associated or like equivalent to the Japanese goddess of wisdom. Where is this here? Like her predecessor. And they're probably going to say that she plays a lute, so she's going to be associated with music. So yes, these wisdom goddesses are associated with music in that part of the world. It's interesting. She's a source of inspiration for different arts. This makes me think of the muses too, including poetry, music, drama, and also science. I love that science and art are considered the same domain in this case. Her name stems from 2 Sanskrit words, Sara, meaning essence, so anyone with the name Sarah, that's what it means. That's nice. And Swa, which means oneself. Oh, I love that. Therefore, the goddess represents the essence or spirit of oneself. As the goddess of knowledge and learning, she's especially honored by students and teachers. Yeah. Interestingly, Saraswati represents both learning, the process of gaining knowledge, as well as the knowledge itself. She illustrates the idea that true knowledge can only be gained through the process of learning. Yeah, I love that. Saraswati is often depicted as dressed in white and sitting on a white lotus. She has 4 arms. 2 are playing a lute-like instrument known as the veena, while the 3rd arm holds a mala, a rosary, and the 4th holds a book, symbolizing her artistry, spiritual essence, and intellect. Her image reflects purity and serenity. In Rig Veda, she's a significant deity associated with flowing water or energy and is known by many names: Brahmani, science, I love this, Vani and Vachi, the flow of music and speech, and Varnesvari, writing or letters. So like I love that, like how music and literacy and science are all interwoven in this particular goddess of wisdom. So very cool. Seshat, number 9. In ancient Egypt, Seshat was the goddess of wisdom, writing, knowledge, measurement, time, and was often referred to as the ruler of books. I like you already, Seshat. She was married to the Egyptian god of wisdom and knowledge, Thoth, and they were both considered the part of the Sesib, or the divine scribes. I did not know that Seshat and Thoth were a couple. Well, that's gotta go down in I gotta do them now next too. I love Thoth too. I have a whole thing on Thoth and Mercury and Hermes as being equivalent, so check that video out as well. Seshat was most commonly depicted as wearing a plain sheath dress covered with panther skin. She would also wear a headpiece with horns, a star that had her name inscribed, as well as a carved palm rib that symbolized the passing of time. It was believed that the goddess was an expert in reading the star constellations and planets. Some thought she helped the pharaoh in stretching the cord ritual. Oh, stretching the cord ritual, which consisted of astrological measurements for the most favorable temple locations. So we all know that temples and the pyramids and all of these are not by accident. They're all very much tied to astrological alignments. And look at this weed plant on top of her head. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, maybe I'm gonna talk to you a little bit, Seshat. I don't have her. Liz chose her initially as having her as a guide goddess, but I think you can have more than one for sure, depending. They're all teachers. Let's see here. So Snotra, the Old Norse word for clever or wise, the Norse goddess of wisdom, self-discipline, and prudence. And according to some scholars, the word Snotra could be used to describe wise men and women. So the whole idea of, okay, snot's a good thing, I guess. The goddess is only mentioned in the collection of Scandinavian myths called the Prose Edda, written by Snorri Sturluson in the 13th century, and there she's one of 16 members in the principal Norse pantheon, the Aesir. She's depicted as courteous and wise, and regarded as the protector goddess of the female principle. That's important. So I'm gonna look into you as well, because I love the pantheon of the Norse, and the different pantheons might be a topic for a different time, as like a whole thing, looking at the different pantheons that exist. 11. Sophia. Originating in Greek mythology, Sophia was the goddess of spiritual wisdom and was referred to as the Divine Mother or the Holy Feminine. The name Sophia means wisdom itself. The goddess was a prominent figure in the belief system of the Gnostic Christians, oh my gosh, who were proclaimed heretics by monotheistic and patriarchal religion in the 14th century. So this is very, I think I just need a whole other thing on Sophia. She is wisdom, and the Bible itself does hold, I would say, ciphers or clues to how you know Sophia, as well as her warriors. Now, in the Old Testament, they say there's hidden references to the goddess, where she's mentioned with the word wisdom. Her name is familiar thanks to the church in Constantinople called Hagia Sophia, which was built by Eastern Christians in the 6th century CE to honor the goddess. In Greek language, Hagia means sacred or holy, and was a title given to older wise women as a sign of respect. And later the word's meaning was corrupted and used to describe older women in a negative light as heck. So this whole thing that happened, that's also just related to what happened to like mother goddess worship as a whole, as it got taken over by Christianity in many cases, or a monotheistic religion. It's like the pantheon went away and we just ended up with like a singular kind of god who's supposed to hold all of that, which is not, it's hard to tell good stories that way, really, if you think about it. And number 12, before we go into my quick deep dive of Athena, Sophia, and Danu. And Sophia, I'm going to have just my own perspective on it. Let's see here. In Tibetan Buddhism, Tara is an important deity associated with wisdom. Tara is the Sanskrit word meaning star. And the goddess is known by many names. They are all known by many names, including the one who fuels all life, the compassionate mother, creator, the wise one, and the great protector. In Mahayana Buddhism, the goddess is described as a female bodhisattva. Bodhisattva. There we go. Any person on the path to complete enlightenment or Buddhahood. So the goddess is considered a female Buddha, the one who has attained the highest enlightenment, wisdom, and compassion. And Tara is one of the oldest and most prominent meditational and devotional deities, widely worshipped by modern day Hindus and Buddhists and many others. So thanks Danny Reese for this little rundown. It was pretty good. That's just a quick rundown. There's so much more complexity to each of these wisdom goddesses and what they mean on a bigger scale, let's say a cosmic astrological scale to you. I associate the wisdom goddesses also with Earth. Gaia is more considered a Earth goddess, like a mother goddess energy, but I do see some associations there with her and Sophia. But before we get into that, let's look at Athena. There's this musical short.
Show yourself. I know you're watching me. Show yourself. I can see you.
How can you see through my spell?
I was lying, and you fell for my bluff. Aha.
Well done, enlighten me, what's your name?
You first, and maybe I'll do the same.
Nice try, but two can play this game.
Nah, don't be modest. I know you're a goddess, so let's be honest. You are Athena. Badass in the...
Ooh, I like that. That was Athena. Oh my gosh, let's play that again. I wonder who this is supposed to be.
Show yourself. I know you're watching me. Show yourself. I can
Odysseus?
see you.
How can you see through my spell?
I was lying, and you fell for my bluff. Aha.
Well done, enlighten me, what's your name?
You first, and maybe I'll do the same.
Nice try, but two can play this game.
Nah, don't be modest. I know you're a goddess, so let's be honest. You are Athena. Badass in the...
Oh, that was good. Okay. I don't know if they'll have anything. There's... This is a good one.
In the beginning, there existed the Alpha and the Omega, transcendent and ineffable. Bythos, the depth, and Barbelo, the silence. From their union, Bythos and Barbelo rippled from the immaterial waters into a holy flame, giving birth to a series of divine beings known as Aeons.
Aeons.
The first successor of Aeons, Nous, known as the divine intellect, and Aletheia, representing divine truth, harnessed celestial light to weave the fabric of existence. Within this cosmic tapestry, they carefully nurtured the tree of life, a profound creation that would bear cosmic eggs.
Oh man, there's a lot of different interpretations here. I'm not going to go into all of this. this is almost there, but I also don't like the way that this is put together. It feels very AI, right? So I'm going to jump out of here. And I'm just going to go here and give you my little perspective, especially of Danu and Sophia, because I think that's a bit... We went over Athena and her fun little musical. She's a badass. She champions warriors. She's the one who gave Achilles his armor. And she's definitely, how should I put this? You don't want to trifle with Athena. So you do want to have her on your good side. And the thing is, the goddesses of wisdom demand more from you, right? You can't lie to a goddess of wisdom. And Sophia is related to the idea of we are part of her dream. We are all dreaming, but we're like a fractal of that. And wisdom is also like the female principle of intel that is shared by all human beings, because all of us as human beings have a masculine and feminine side, and that's the idea of the Kundalini snake, which is wrapped 3.5 times around the base of your spine, that through enlightenment you get a meeting of that and it rises. And that's kind of where the Dragon Warriors come from as well, where we all have a little dragon in us, and if we don't address it, we don't nurture it, we don't deal with it, tame it through experience and through our lessons and learnings, and applying that and truly coming at it in a self-aware way and through gnosis, that is the aspect of what Sophia is in us. So much more to it. I will have to have a whole other separate conversation about that too as well, because she's involved in the Dragon Warriors and the Great Dragon and the concept of the Ouroboros and the Great Weaver. All of these ideas are, and what that means for us, even as within, so without perspective. That's a lot of information to try to like pack in that I don't cannot do right now. But bringing this all back to Danu, which is also a goddess of magic and kind of like the head of like the fairy folk, as was said from that overall look at the different wisdom goddesses of the world. And Danu and the mother goddess principle in Viking lore, and as we saw in Celtic myth, has a lot in common with the mother goddess and goddesses of wisdom in Hindu mythology and some of the eastern parts of the world. And even as we discovered today about how the different triad of gods that were worshipped on a hill, but that was just not something that culture did before taking over this other culture. So it's like these stories all like intermingle, and you build new stories from that point. But there's still timelines that exist that are just those things. So we can use that as well to like help map out where we are in space-time, and also in your own archetypal playgrounds of your own consciousness, and dealing with the different aspects of you that when you have to make tough decisions, or when you are going through a hard time and you have that self-talk with the parts of yourself as to what to do next, and how you're even looking at memories in the past, and all of that is all kind of related to like bringing this all around to astrology, and how mythology and these stories of goddesses and gods relate to us on a personal level, because these stories play out within us personally every day, if we think about it, right? When we think about even gods being fearful of being usurped by their children, and then reacting in a way that ends up fulfilling that prophecy in a weird way. In Zeus's case, not so much, but it's kind of like he did exactly like what his father kind of did, like, swallowed stuff to prevent something else from happening. And out of this, like, his favorite daughter came from it. And it's just interesting because it's also this idea that that is one aspect of wisdom, and the other aspect is this whole idea of fertility and the female principle. And between those two is the truth. So with that, I will leave all of you Happy Warrior Goddess Wednesday. We are also launching our weekly virtual and remote training starting. Hopefully everything will be up by Friday, because as of Monday, we will start the new week with all of our clientele. So you can jump in any week, and then you'll get a full week of workouts, supplementation, coaching, all of that good stuff, everything that you would need to live your life optimally and healthfully and with vitality, so that you can live out your own hero's journeys in this lifetime. So all of that info will be in all of the links below for sure. And so just make sure that you're also subscribed to all of our mailing lists if you're interested in that, because we'll of course have some deals for all of you. Who doesn't like a deal, right? All right. Thank you so much, my friends, for joining me this evening on this live stream with me, Rachel Z, your host for Warrior Goddess Wednesday, where we went over the warrior goddesses, well, the goddesses of wisdom, which do end up being warrior goddesses in general, because wisdom loves a warrior. All right, warriors, have a great night wherever you reside in the cosmos.